Welcome back, everyone, to our latest deep dive. Today, we're tackling a term you hear constantly: data. It's often called the digital black gold, but what does that really mean?
It's a really powerful analogy, isn't it? And our mission today is, well, to really dig into why this intangible stuff holds so much power. We'll look at how it's collected, how it's used everywhere, and crucially, the big ethical questions it brings up.
Exactly. We've waded through the sources you sent over, and there's a lot there. From detailed research on data's economic power to ethical deep dives and what's coming next. We're going to pull out the key insights to help you really get your head around this. So yeah, let's jump in.
Okay, so that black gold comparison, it really is quite fitting in some ways. It was actually a British mathematician, Clive Humby, who coined data is the new oil way back in 2006. He saw its huge sort of untapped value even then.
And when you break it down, the life cycle, it's strangely similar to oil, right? You got that initial exploration and discovery phase. For oil, geologists are out there looking for reservoirs. But for data, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, good question. For data, it's more about exploring algorithms, exploring different types of data, looking for those breakthroughs. Think about AI, for example. A discovery might be when a new algorithm suddenly gets way better at understanding language or finding patterns in really complex data.
Ah, okay. Like striking a rich digital vein.
Exactly. It's finding that potential.
Okay, so you found it. Then comes extraction and refining. Crude oil straight out of the ground isn't very useful. It has to be processed, right? Into gasoline, plastics.
Right. And raw data is pretty similar. It's not immediately useful, especially for AI. It needs careful gathering, cleaning, prepping. That's the extraction. Then the refining is more about tuning the AI models, optimizing the algorithms, building interfaces so people can actually use the insights. That's how you turn raw potential into real value.
It's easy to think of digital stuff as being clean, almost weightless, just existing in the cloud. But does this oil comparison hold up when we think about, say, environmental impact? Is processing all this data energy intensive?
That's a really important point, and yeah, it often gets missed. Both oil extraction and the kind of data processing needed for AI, they actually use massive amounts of energy, computation, data storage. It all adds up.
So that idea of digital being totally green isn't quite right.
Definitely not. There's a real energy cost involved.
Okay, and then the final step. Getting it to the consumers. Distribution.
Exactly. Oil gets around through pipelines, tankers, gas stations. AI gets distributed digitally, think. APIs, cloud platforms. That's what makes the intelligence accessible, potentially globally.
Okay, the parallels are definitely there, but it can't be a perfect analogy. Where does this digital black gold comparison start to, fall apart?
Right, and this is super important. Oil is finite. It's also rivalrous. If I burn a gallon of gas, you can't burn that same gallon. Data, though, it's non-rivalrous. You and I can both use the exact same data set at the same time, and it doesn't get used up. And it's potentially infinite. We're creating more all the time. Even when you pay with data for some free app, you still have your data. You haven't really lost it.
And it's not fungible like oil either, is it? One barrel of crude is pretty much like another, but data.
Yeah.
Well, data's value is all about context. My health data isn't interchangeable with my social media likes. Totally different things.
Exactly right. And that's another key difference. The analogy might make you think just having data is the key. But the real power, the concentration of power, often lies in controlling the means of processing and refining that data.
You mean like having the best computers, the smartest algorithms, the biggest data sets already organized?
Precisely. The computational power, the proprietary algorithms, the huge curated data sets, that's where the bottleneck is. Not necessarily the raw data itself, which can be generated endlessly. It creates similar power dynamics to oil, even though the resource itself isn't scarce in the same way.
Plus, the economics are totally different. Extracting more oil gets more expensive, right? Increasing marginal costs. But with data, once a company like Google or Facebook has its platform, adding one more user costs almost nothing, near zero marginal cost.
Exactly. And that fuels network effects and can drive down prices for consumers. In a way, it's a completely different economic model. Think about MySpace. They had tons of user data way before Facebook.
Yeah, I remember MySpace.
But Facebook built a better product, used the data more effectively, and, well, we know how that turned out. It's how you use the data, not just having it.
And this creates weird situations for accountants too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Oil shows up on a company's balance sheet as an asset, but data that a company generates itself often valued at zero.
Right. which is crazy when you think about it. It massively understates the real value and profitability of these digital giants. One source mentioned Amazon's profitability could jump like 17% if its data was properly valued on the books.
17%. Wow. That's huge hidden value. And then there's the whole paying with data thing. So many online services seem free.
But they're not really free, are they? You're paying with your attention, your clicks, your personal information. It's basically a barter system.
Like when Whole Foods gives you a discount if you link your Amazon Prime account, you're trading purchase data for a few bucks off.
Exactly. And that kind of transaction is really hard to measure in traditional economic terms like GDP. Plus, unlike a physical asset like a building, data's value can plummet really quickly.
How so?
Well, data about something volatile, like minute-by-minute stock orders, might be valuable now but worthless tomorrow, whereas something stable, like customer zip codes, holds its value longer. Obsolescence and competition can erode data value fast.
Okay, so despite those differences, data is clearly this massive economic force, a pivotal asset driving growth. Did you mention a figure for its global value?
Yeah, the estimates are staggering, approaching $3 trillion globally.
3 trillion. Just wow.
It really is immense. And it's transforming how businesses operate. Companies can scale globally without needing, factories everywhere. They can jump into totally new industries. Look at Google paying Apple, $12 billion in 2019 just for traffic acquisition?
12 billion. Just to get search traffic from iPhones.
It shows the incredible value placed on simply accessing user data streams.
And fundamentally, what makes data so valuable? Is it just information?
At its core, data is digitized information, yes. But its real power often comes from its use in prediction, reducing uncertainty, reducing risk. That ability to resolve risk, to make better guesses about the future, that can be its single greatest source of value.
Okay, that makes sense. Less guessing, more knowing.
Exactly. And this fuels something called the data feedback loop. It's a powerful cycle.
How does that work?
Well, think about it. The more customers or transactions a company has, the more data it generates.
Right.
That data can then be used to improve the product or service, make it more efficient, more personalized.
Which then attracts more customers.
Exactly. Who then generate even more data. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. It helps explain why some tech companies grow so incredibly fast and achieve such dominance.
It sounds almost like a magic engine. But it's not just about the data itself.
Right.
You need people to make sense of it. We mentioned something called the knowledge production triangle.
Absolutely. That triangle highlights the human element. You start with raw data. Then you need people like data managers to structure it, clean it up. That gets you structured data. But then you need analysts to take that structured data and turn it into actual knowledge insights, strategies, actionable information. So there's a significant investment in human skill needed to unlock the value.
And even with all that value, we still struggle to put a price tag on data using traditional methods.
Yeah, it's tricky. That non-rivalrous nature is one problem. And it's often treated as an expense, not an asset. Plus, data is often what economists call a private value asset, meaning its value depends hugely on who is using it and why. Think about a weather forecast. For you or me, it's maybe worth knowing if we need an umbrella.
Right. Minor convenience.
But for an airline planning flight routes, or a farmer deciding the absolute best day to harvest a multi-million-dollar crop, that exact same piece of data could be worth a fortune to them. Its value isn't common, like a share of stock. It's specific to the user, their situation, their existing information.
Got it. Okay, so if this stuff is so valuable, this new black gold, how do companies actually get their hand on it? Where does all this digital raw material come from?
Well, it breaks down into a few main categories. First, you've got primary data. That's data a company collects directly itself, like if they run a customer survey.
Okay, straightforward.
Then there's secondary data. That's basically using someone else's primary data, maybe through a partnership or collaboration.
Right, and then the big one seems to be third-party data.
Yeah, that's data aggregated by specialized companies from tons of different sources. They compile it, often anonymize it to some degree, and sell it or trade it on data exchanges. It gives you that broad view of market trends.
And what about zero-party data? That sounds intriguing.
That's data customers give you willingly, proactively, like when you sign up for a loyalty program and tell them your preferences, I like these products, remind me about sales on these items. They're explicitly sharing it for a benefit.
Okay, so those are the sources. What about the types of data being collected?
Loads of types. There's basic personal data: name, age, location, demographics, then behavioral data, how you interact online, what websites you visit, clicks, social media likes, scrolling patterns.
Tracking our digital footprints.
Pretty much. Then transactional data, what you buy, when, how you pay, returns, all that business history.
And you mentioned a new frontier earlier.
Yes.
Sensor data.
Yes. This is exploding with the Internet of Things, or IoT. Devices everywhere in homes, cities, factories, cars, constantly measuring the physical world. Temperature, motion, location, vibration, air quality.
Turning the physical world into digital data streams.
Continuously. It's a massive source, translating reality into digital assets constantly. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about the scale of it.
It really is. So how are companies actually collecting all this? What are the methods in action?
Well, the common ones online are tracking cookies, device fingerprinting, things that follow you across websites. Transactional tracking is obvious. Every purchase is logged. Social media monitoring, scraping public posts, asking for it directly through subscription or registration forms. Even things like in-store sensors, monitoring foot traffic patterns.
Okay, so they've got this mountain of raw data collected in all these ways.
Yeah.
But you mentioned earlier, having it isn't enough. It needs to be useful, especially for AI. What's the big challenge there?
The absolute biggest challenge, honestly. Quality. It comes down to that old saying, garbage in, garbage out.
Especially true for AI, I imagine.
Oh, massively. Once you've collected the data, it needs serious cleaning, pre-processing. If the data you use to train your AI model is biased or inaccurate or just plain messy, the AI won't just learn those flaws, it'll often amplify them.
Oof. Turning potential digital gold into, what did you call it? Digital sludge?
Exactly, digital sludge. And that sludge can have real, sometimes harmful consequences when the AI makes decisions in the real world.
So how do companies avoid the sludge? How do they make sure they're working with gold, especially with these enormous data sets?
That's where a field called MLOps comes in, machine learning operations.
MLOps. Okay, what's that about?
Think of it like bringing factory-style discipline and automation to AI development. It's about creating reliable pipelines for collecting data, integrating it, cleaning it, monitoring the models. It ensures consistency, efficiency, scalability.
So it's like the quality control and production line for AI.
That's a great way to put it. It helps ensure the AI models are built on a solid foundation, are reliable, and can actually be deployed and maintained effectively in the real world. It's how you move from just experimenting with AI to actually building robust, valuable AI systems you can trust, avoiding the sludge problem.
Right. Okay. So MLOps helps refine the raw material. We've got the collection, the processing.
Yeah.
Where is this refined digital gold actually making the biggest waves? Which industries are being transformed?
It's impacting pretty much every sector you can think of. The big shift we're seeing everywhere is moving from being reactive, fixing problems after they happen, to being proactive, using data to anticipate issues, intervene early.
That sounds like a fundamental change.
It is. It optimizes how resources are used, improves customer satisfaction. It's huge. Look at healthcare. Big data analytics is changing everything from making earlier diagnoses and personalizing treatments to predicting disease outbreaks.
Any specific examples?
Sure. Beth Israel Hospital was using data from millions of patients via cell phone apps to improve evidence-based medicine. The University of Florida used public health data combined with Google Maps to track chronic diseases geographically.
Wow. That's incredible potential. What about finance?
Finance is all over it. Fraud detection, managing risk, understanding customers better. High-frequency trading relies entirely on data. Anti-money laundering efforts, know your customer rules data is key. A Deloitte study found something like 80% of financial institutions were using big data analytics.
80%. That's widespread adoption. And retail. We mentioned Amazon earlier.
Yeah, retail uses it constantly. Optimizing store staffing based on predicted traffic, managing inventory way better to avoid stockouts or overstocking, and of course that hyper-personalized marketing. Amazon's recommendation engine is the classic example, knowing what you might want before you do.
Creepy, but effective. What about manufacturing? Less obvious, maybe.
You'd be surprised. Data is crucial there too. Quality control relies on analyzing production data. And predictive maintenance is huge, using sensors on machinery to predict when a part might fail before it actually breaks down.
So less downtime, longer equipment life. Makes sense.
Exactly. A PwC survey found about 2/3 of manufacturing execs saw big data analytics as essential.
Any other interesting examples jump out?
Oh, loads. Domino's Pizza uses predictive analytics to forecast demand and optimize deliveries. The airline industry uses it for personalized passenger experiences and, like manufacturing, predictive maintenance on planes. And companies like Uber rely entirely on a sophisticated big data setup for matching drivers and riders, calculating fares dynamically. It's everywhere.
It really is powering innovation across the board. But let's get down to brass tacks. For businesses, the bottom line often comes down to, well, the bottom line. How do they actually monetize this digital gold, turn data into actual dollars?
Right, that's the key question for many. Data monetization is basically the process of converting that data's inherent value into tangible financial returns. And you can do it in a couple of main ways, internally or externally.
Okay, let's start with external. How do companies make money directly from the data itself?
The most direct way is, well, selling it. Selling raw or aggregated customer data, often anonymized to some degree, to other companies, particularly in the ad tech space. Think Facebook and Google's core business model.
Right, selling access to eyeballs based on data profiles.
Exactly. Another way is offering data as a service, or DaaS. This is where a company might have a unique data set or a powerful analytics platform, and they sell access to it, usually on a subscription basis.
Like selling access to specialized market insights.
Precisely. Or weather data providers, financial data terminals, things like that. And then there's data sharing between partner companies, where they might exchange data sets for mutual benefit, maybe co-developing a product or service.
Okay, so that's selling data or access. What about the internal side? Using data to boost your own profits without selling the data itself.
That's indirect monetization, and it's incredibly common. It's about using data to make your own operations smarter, better, more profitable.
Like how?
Improving processes is a big one. An automaker analyzing fuel efficiency data from cars on the road to improve the design of the next model that leads to better sales down the line. Or using analytics within your products to make them better for the customer.
Like a smart thermostat learning your preferences.
Exactly. That enhances the customer experience, makes the product stickier, maybe justifies a higher price. Companies can also use their data insights to develop entirely new products or add-on features.
Like an analytics dashboard as an extra for business software.
Perfect example. Or offering specialized professional services based on their data expertise. Customized reports, consulting, automated insights tailored to a client's needs.
So, summing up the upsides. It creates new revenue, gives companies a competitive edge, especially if they have unique first-party data.
Right. Improves customer experience, boosts internal efficiency, lots of benefits.
But there's always a but, isn't there? This drive to squeeze value out of data runs right up against individual rights, privacy.
That's the fundamental tension, yes. Maximizing the economic value versus protecting people. It's a constant balancing act, and frankly, one we're still figuring out.
And this tension leads us into some pretty murky areas. You mentioned data brokers earlier.
Yeah, data brokers are businesses whose whole model is collecting personal information from all sorts of places, public records, web tracking, surveys, sometimes even social engineering, compiling these detailed profiles, and then selling them.
Selling our personal information, basically.
Often without us even knowing who they are or what they have. And then there's the dark web, which acts as a black market for stolen data, credit card numbers, logins, personal identities. Our sources suggest this illegal trade could be worth billions annually.
Billions. That's shocking. And alongside brokers, you have hackers actively trying to steal data.
Right. You've got different types, black hats who hack maliciously for profit or disruption, gray hats who might find vulnerabilities and maybe disclose them, sometimes controversially, and white hats or ethical hackers who companies hire to find weaknesses before the bad guys do.
But the threat is real.
Yeah.
You saw that Barcelona hospital cyber attack you mentioned, Ransom House Group, stealing sensitive patient data, disrupting services.
Exactly. It highlights just how vulnerable this data can be and why protecting it is so critical. The consequences of breaches are very real.
Beyond the direct financial harm of breaches and this shadow economy of data brokers, what are the bigger, maybe more subtle ethical impacts on society?
Well, one huge issue is algorithmic bias. We touched on it with AI training data. Because the data often reflects existing societal biases, historical hiring patterns, lending practices, policing data, the AI systems trained on it can end up perpetuating or even amplifying those biases.
And we have concrete examples, right? Amazon's hiring tool discriminating against women.
Yes. And the Compass algorithm used in the U.S. justice system showing bias against black defendants. biased outcomes in financial lending, where Black and Hispanic applicants might be denied loans more often, even with similar qualifications.
Yeah, there's that healthcare example, too, where an algorithm favored white patients because it mistook higher past spending for greater need.
Right, and facial recognition systems notoriously have higher error rates for people of color and women. These aren't theoretical problems. They have real-world impacts on people's lives, opportunities, and even freedom.
It's deeply concerning. Then there's the whole privacy minefield.
Absolutely. The sheer scale of data collection is one thing, but it's also how it's used targeted advertising that feels invasive, detailed profiling, dynamic pricing where different people are charged different amounts for the same thing. It can really erode trust.
Yeah, that feeling that you're constantly being watched and analyzed. The line between public and private feels increasingly blurred.
Exactly. You hear people say, we no longer know what's private and what's public. And this raises huge questions, especially around children's data, and this idea of whether we should have a fundamental right to data ownership.
Do we own our data? Or do the companies that collect it? It's a massive question. And the Cambridge Analytica scandal really brought this home, didn't it?
It really did. Using Facebook data harvested through those seemingly harmless personality quizzes to build detailed psychological profiles.
And then using those profiles to target political ads during the 2016 U.S. election, trying to influence voters without their explicit consent or even knowledge of how their data was being used.
It was a stark wake-up call about the potential for misuse and manipulation.
And beyond profiling, there's the rise of actual surveillance using AI, cameras everywhere, sensors.
Yeah, the deployment of AI-powered surveillance systems is growing rapidly. And while there can be benefits, like public safety, there are serious downsides.
Like the chilling effect.
Exactly. If people feel they're constantly monitored, even in public, they might change their behavior. They might self-censor, avoid certain places or conversations, become less willing to express dissenting views. It can subtly erode autonomy and freedom of expression.
That constant feeling of being watched, it can definitely make you think twice about what you say or do.
For sure. And there's the risk of these systems becoming tools for social control, whether by governments or corporations. Monitoring behavior, influencing it, potentially disproportionately affecting already marginalized groups who might be subject to more scrutiny. We saw debates about this with things like COVID-19 tracking apps and proposals for citywide surveillance systems, like the one debated in Barcelona.
So it's clear that extracting the value from this digital gold isn't the only challenge. We have to figure out how to do it responsibly.
That's where data governance becomes absolutely essential.
So define that for us. What is data governance really?
Think of it as the overall rulebook, the framework an organization puts in place for how it handles data, how it's acquired, stored, managed, secured, used, and eventually disposed of. It covers policies, standards, processes, controls.
So it's the foundation for trust and responsible use.
Exactly. It's indispensable if you want data integrity, if you want people to trust the data and the insights derived from it. Especially crucial for AI, machine learning, IoT projects where data might be coming from all over the place, maybe even sources you don't directly control. Good governance is non-negotiable.
If the data house isn't in order, everything built on it is shaky. And part of that order comes from regulations like GDPR in Europe and CCPA in California.
Yes. Those are landmark regulations. They share common goals, empowering individuals with rights over their personal data, regulating how companies collect and handle it. They both have broad definitions of what counts as personal data and mandate security measures.
But they're not identical, right? There's a key difference in how they handle consent.
That's the main distinction, yeah. GDPR generally requires explicit opt-in consent. Companies need your active, specific permission before they collect or process your personal data for many purposes.
So the default is no, unless I say yes.
Pretty much. CCPA, on the other hand, largely follows an opt-out model, particularly regarding the sale or sharing of data. Businesses can often collect data by default, but they must give consumers a clear way to say, do not sell or share my personal information.
So the default is more like yes, unless I say no. That seems like a pretty fundamental difference in philosophy.
It is, and it has real impacts on how much data companies can easily access and how they structure their monetization strategies depending on where their customers are.
Okay, looking forward now, the landscape is constantly changing. What are some of the big emerging trends you see shaping the future of this data economy?
Well, there are several interconnected trends driving things forward. AI and machine learning, of course, continue to advance rapidly. They're automating more complex data tasks, processing, finding anomalies, predicting maintenance needs, making forecasts much more precise. One projection suggests 65% of organizations will be using or looking into AI for data analytics by 2025.
65%. That's fast adoption. What else?
Natural language processing, NLP, is getting much better, allowing us to analyze unstructured text data, think customer reviews, social media comments for things like sentiment analysis or summarizing huge documents.
Making sense of written language at scale.
Exactly. Then there are architectural shifts. Data mesh is an interesting one. It's about decentralizing data ownership, moving away from one central data warehouse towards domain-specific data products, makes it easier for different teams to access and use data collaboratively.
Sounds more flexible.
It can be. Edge computing is another big one. Processing data closer to where it's generated, like on the IoT device itself or local gateway, instead of sending everything to the cloud. This reduces latency, which is crucial for real-time applications.
Like self-driving cars needing instant analysis.
Perfect example. Then, data as a service, DAS, which we touched on, is growing. More companies are outsourcing data storage, processing, even predictive modeling, which can help smaller businesses leverage sophisticated analytics without massive upfront investment.
Leveling the playing field a bit.
Potentially, yeah. Related to that is data democratization, the push to make data and analytics tools accessible to more people within an organization, not just specialist data scientists, fostering a broader data literate culture.
Getting insights into more hands. And you mentioned one earlier that sounded particularly sci-fi. Agentic AI.
Yes. Agentic AI refers to AI systems that can operate more autonomously, making decisions and taking actions towards a goal with less human intervention. Think of AI agents that can manage workflows, optimize supply chains, or even conduct negotiations within set parameters.
Wow. That sounds transformative. What was the prediction for that?
The projection is that about a third, 33%, of enterprise software could incorporate agentic AI by 2028. That's up from almost nothing today, less than 1%. A huge leap.
Definitely one to watch. So all these trends promise more power, more insights. But they must come with new challenges, too.
Absolutely. AI risk management is becoming critical. New tech brings new vulnerabilities, things like data poisoning, where someone intentionally corrupts training data to sabotage an AI model. Plus, all the ethical dilemmas we've discussed become even more complex. This is driving interest in frameworks like AI, TRESM, trust, risk, and security management for AI.
So building trust and safety nets for AI, what about old-fashioned data breaches?
Still a massive issue, and arguably getting worse with more data being generated and stored everywhere. This is pushing a focus towards more human-centric cybersecurity design, thinking about how real people interact with systems. There's a prediction CISOs will shift focus here by 2027. And generative AI, unfortunately, can make things like phishing attacks and ransomware even more convincing and harder to spot.
A double-edged sword there.
Yeah.
What about careers in data? We hear about tech layoffs, but is data science still a good field?
Interestingly, yes. Even amidst wider tech layoffs, sources show that demand for data scientists remain pretty strong. The need to make sense of all this data isn't going away. It still looks like a field with significant opportunity. The digital gold rush needs prospectors and refiners.
That's good to hear. Okay, let's try and bring this all together as we wrap up.
Sure. I think it's undeniable, as we've discussed, that data really has become this era's black gold. It's a fundamental commodity, fueling incredible economic growth, innovation, and change across pretty much every aspect of society.
But it's definitely a duality, isn't it? All that power, all that potential comes hand in hand with these really significant ethical headaches, algorithmic bias, serious privacy invasions, the creep of surveillance.
Exactly. It's not just about extracting value. Responsibly managing this resource needs constant vigilance, ongoing adaptation. It requires everyone, governments setting rules, businesses acting ethically, civil society advocating for rights, individuals being aware, working together. The goal has to be ensuring data ultimately serves humanity in a broad, fair, and sustainable way.
And that leaves us with a final thought, something for you, our listeners, to chew on. As data gets woven ever more tightly into the fabric of our lives, maybe the biggest question isn't just how much value can we possibly extract from it, but rather, what kind of world, what kind of society are we actually building with all this data? How do we make sure this hunt for digital black gold genuinely benefits everyone, enriching society as a whole, and not just concentrating power and wealth in the hands of a few?
That's the question we all need to keep asking.